Future Hall of Fame quarterback Cam Newton was asked if he is the greatest dual threat quarterback of all time. He says no, it's Lamar Jackson who is. Let's talk about it. On this podcast, Cam was asked to expound why he thinks Lamar is better than him as the greatest dual threat. I'll just let him say it in his own words.
Do you see or think of yourself as the greatest dual threat to ever play the game?
No, Lamar Jackson.
What? Why so? Why Lamar?
Speak on it.
Well, Lamar's style is a little different than mine. He got
That's
big
fair.
play, any play.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yes, he got speed that I never had.
Track speed.
And he's just electric.
Yeah.
And then, like, I played the game more
Physical.
powerful.
Powerful. Same difference.
You're going to run through you. They might run around you.
4 for 1. That's why the pod's
I
ain't
can
that.
run, but I might probably get caught. Vic, Lamar, they ain't getting caught.
All right. So, first of all, salute to Cam to humbling himself to admit that. In today's age, you rarely see an athlete openly admitting someone is better than him, right? So the fact that he can admit that, big props to Cam. But a lot of points were made there. And I think when we're talking about the pantheon of who is in that, at least in the conversation, right? I think Lamar is the greatest. I agree with Cam Newton. But in terms of who else is in this conversation, obviously Cam, we're talking about Mike Vick, we talk about Lamar. If you're old school, you're going Randall Cunningham and Steve Young, right? So I think that's like the crux of the list. You could throw in the McNair and maybe some others if you want. But when we're talking about top three, I think the three are Cam, Vick, and Lamar. And just the amount of discord in regards to what people think of Lamar, it's just he's just so polarizing. It's so interesting in the video I did just last week about Mark Slar's comments saying Lamar doesn't have enough weapons that I had to spin the block on it because when it comes to weapons, it constantly confuses me when I'm going into the comments of the videos where I'm talking about Lamar Jackson, why folks can understand that, yes, Lamar can put up crazy video game numbers in the regular season without top-tier talent, but that will ultimately be his demise in the postseason because the postseason, is harder than the regular season. It just baffles me how, while he did it in the regular season, why can't he do it in the playoffs? Because, yes, you can get away with not having top-tier talent if you're him in the regular season. You cannot get away with that unless you're the Michael Jordan of the sport and Patrick Mahomes. You can't get away with that in the postseason, okay? Only Mahomes can get away with it, right? You have to be that much better than Lamar Jackson to be able to get away with winning multiple Super Bowls with inferior talent at skill positions, right? Let's really dissect the weapons that Lamar Jackson has had, even more so than the ones that were drafted in the first round, the wide receivers that were drafted. Let's start his first year, 2018. Yes, he did not play the whole season. Flacco got the first 9 starts, but let's just look at just the talent, the receiving talent, right? We're talking about yards, right? Receiving yards. 715 yards was the leading receiver on that team, okay? Let's go to the next season, 2019. 2019, Lamar is the starter. Lamar gets the MVP. Let's look at the numbers for that squad, okay? Receiving. Okay. Mark Andrews led the team with 852 yards. Leading receiver, Hollywood Brown with 584 yards, okay? So again, we're looking for these weapons. Everyone keeps telling me in the comments, Lamar has had weapons. Find me these weapons when it's 2 years in and he doesn't have not one person with 1,000 yards receiving. Year 3, does he get somebody? Year 3, he does not get anybody with receiving. Hollywood Brown, again, 769 yards, and Mark Andrews, 700 yards. That's what he's dealing with. Willie Snead, okay? That's the weapons that y'all are telling me, well, if he could do it in the regular season, do it in the playoffs. Do it in the playoffs with Willie Snead? Is that what we're really talking about? 2021. I think this is the year where Lamar gets hurt, right? Yeah, he only played 12 games. So they had to air it out when Lamar went out, and I do believe we have some 1,000 yards. Okay, we have 2,000-yard receivers. Mark Andrews cracks 1,300. And Hollywood Brown cracks 1,000 and barely cracks 1,000, okay? So even when they were forced to air it out, Hollywood Brown barely cracked a G, okay? 2022, let's go ahead and get into it. Lamar is back. Back at what capacity? He gave you 12 starts, 8-4 in those 12 starts. All right, receiving yards, 847 yards. 847 yards. DeMarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay, Rashard Bateman as a rook, Isaiah Likely. This is the weapons y'all keep telling me, how come it's not working in the postseason? Because you could argue it damn near didn't work in the regular season. Lamar is just so much him because he is the greatest dual threat quarterback of all time that he made this work. These numbers he made work. And then we go into last year. New offensive system, Todd Monken, although he only ran the ball 6 times in the AFC Championship game at the crib. What was it last year? 858 yards for Zach Flowers, an old Odell Beckham 565, Mark Andrews, a hobbled Mark Andrews 554. And yet you're telling me, well, if he could do it in the regular season, why can't he do it in the postseason? Look at what you're seeing on the screen here. Do I need to zoom in? I'll zoom in if I have to, okay? I'll zoom in. 858 yards. There's only been one season of Lamar Jackson's entire career where he's had weapons put up 1,000 yards, which is the most baseline of benchmarks of good production, okay? And it wasn't even his receiver with the most yards. It was still his tight end with the most yards. And you want to complain to me about, well, Lamar has had weapons in the regular season. How come he can't do nothing with those weapons in the postseason? Because it is, 1, hard, and because 2, he doesn't really have weapons to begin with. When ranking QBs in today's NFL, it's easy to get caught up in the minutia of, well, who's number 1, who's number 2? Hey, hard stop. Number 1 is Patrick Mahomes. Move on, okay? The debate begins at number 2 because there's a huge gap between number 1 and number 2, okay? The debate is who's number 2. When it comes down to debating who's number 2, it ultimately comes down to who's been put in the best position to succeed. And I'm going to run down the QBs that are constantly being compared to Lamar that have been put in better positions to win than Lamar Jackson. Let's start with Joe Burrow, okay? Joe Burrow comes in, 2020, a handful of starts, about 10 starts. You can see the stats, right? You see decent numbers especially for a rook. Good success rates. Analytics, not that great when it comes to QB rating and QBR, stuff like that. But what happened in 2021? Because clearly you see the jump here. What happened in 2021? They went from 2-7-1 win record to 10-6, and this was the year they went to the Super Bowl, right? Well, they took Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase comes in, and immediately you see the production. So from starting 10 games to 16 the next year, we have an increase of over 2,000 yards, okay? You can't tell me that's just Joe Burrow getting better. That's Joe Burrow getting a bona fide perennial number 1 wide receiver in Jamar Chase to go along with Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, by the way. So surrounded by a trifecta of weapons off rip in his second year starting. So if you want to come at me with weapons and what Lamar has and doesn't have, Lamar has nothing of the sort when compared to Joe Burrow. Another person that's often thrown in the mix when it comes to Lamar Jackson is Josh Allen. So Josh Allen comes in 2018. His first couple of years were okay. You could argue even mid to a certain degree, especially when you're looking at that completion percentage, because 60% is the baseline in today's NFL because everything is so pass happy, and this is the check down league. Everything is a check down. So to not be able to throw 60%, you kind of have to look at it a wee bit shaky. But again, you know, he was still able to produce and give you some good numbers. But there is a jump here. You see the jump to go from 10-6 to 13-3. They passed the ball just a little bit more, but the completion percentage went up. I can do the math. That's 11 percentage points, okay? The completion percentage goes up a lot in it, almost 1,500 more passing yards. Well, what did the Bills do? Oh, that's right. They went out there and acquired Stephon Diggs, a bona fide true number 1 wide receiver. So we have the Bengals going out there and getting Jamar Chase for Joe Burrow. We have the Bills going out there and trading for Stephon Diggs and getting instant dividends with that help. So Josh Allen went from a guy that was a turnover machine, couldn't even throw for 60%, and then goes and throws for damn near 70%. And even his QBR and his passer rating move up drastically. Then he gets on the cover of Madden. Was that really the improvement of Josh Allen, or was that them, the Bills, bringing in a top-tier talent at wide receiver in Stephon Diggs? Justin Herbert might be the greatest example of this, right? Because he has known no such life without top-tier talent in the National Checkdown League. Because he walks in and has Keenan Allen in Mike Williams, in Austin Eckler, and he lived a privileged life. Well, with your man's coach Wrangler, Harbaugh, coming in there, he's gotten rid of everybody because he wants to ground and pound. Let me see Jay Herbo put up the type of numbers he's been accustomed to putting up. Let me see him do that this year, because he's not going to have the top tier talent he's been accustomed to ever since he walked into this league in 2020. I mean, he walks in and puts up video game like numbers because he's had top tier talent all around him, not only in the backfield, but split wide outs. So this is the greatest example of, well, how come Lamar can't put up the numbers Jay Herbo's putting up? Does Lamar have a Keenan Allen? Does he even have a Mike Williams? He damn sure doesn't even have an Austin Eckler. So what numbers are you expecting him to put up? How can you compare what Justin Herbert was given compared to what Lamar Jackson has been given? We could even get into Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts comes in, well, it's 2020. Yeah, 2020, they hand him the keys in 2021. And in them handing the keys, they also handed him Devonta Smith. So they invested a first-round pick in Devonta Smith to help him ascend and be better in that first year, right? First year as a full starter. So he puts up pretty good numbers, solid numbers. You saw that the potential was there, but that maybe to really succeed, they needed one more piece. And then what did they go out and do for 2022? They went out there and they absolutely steal A.J. Brown from the Titans, and then away we go, 14-1 and a Super Bowl performance. But if you just want to see the numbers, again, the numbers didn't go up that crazy, but just having a better player, having a true number one wide receiver, and having Devonta Smith, who maybe on a bad team could be a number one, but on a great team, he's not a number one. But having that caliber talent as you're now number two, and having a clear number one in A.J. Brown, the numbers increased. The production increased. The analytics increased, all in a positive manner. So again, another team that went out there and saw what they had at QB and decided, let's help him. The Baltimore Ravens do have the greatest dual threat quarterback in NFL history in Lamar Jackson. But if they don't invest in top tier weapons around him, they're going to trick off this generational talent. And he'll be the next in line behind Cam Newton, behind Michael Vick, behind Randall Cunningham, and never getting a championship.